Hello, everyone. Good afternoon in British time. We shall start this webinar, and so I welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar entitled Health Systems, Culture and Climate Change. My name is Dr. Amali Lokigamage. I'm a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist and an honorary associate professor in London, UK. I've been a long-standing advocate of respectful maternity care, human rights and healthcare, equality and diversity and decolonisation, with a particular interest in addressing power imbalances. So it is a pleasure to be with you all and learn from our panelists today. This event is part of a series of physical...
I lost your voice.
Physical, mental and planetary health, exploring the links between the environment and health, which is jointly organised by Flourishing Diversity, the Wellcome Centre for Cultures and Environments of Health at the University of Exeter and the Wellcome Centre for Ethics and Humanities. This event series has two intentions: to build bridges between communities working within the fields of public health, medicine, environment, climate change and beyond, and to explore the interwoven threads of planetary health and human health with an interdisciplinary and international approach. We have time for questions at the end, so please add any questions that you might have into the chat. And please note that we have a 5-minute break halfway through this conversation. We are honoured to have three highly experienced individuals with us today: Dr. Sunil Kaur, Runa Khan and Ingrid Lewis. And we're really delighted to hear from Sunil first. I shall briefly explain his bio. Dr. Sunil Kaur is the founder and managing trustee of the Action Northeast Trust, ANT for short, a non-profit organisation based in the conflict-ridden northeast India that works on the determinants of health like education, child protection, women's empowerment, livelihoods, peace building and mental health. As a public health doctor, he has consulted on malaria, TB, maternal health and child health, and other public health issues with national and international agencies. He has over 10 years experience in the Army as a medical doctor and associated with the development sector for over 25 years. In its 20th year, ANT continues to work for the development of villages in northeast India, reaching out to 900 village hamlets throughout their work on education, child protection, women's empowerment, peace building and mental health. And at another level, the ANT initiative called IDEA, the Institute of Development Action, works with other NGOs all over the Northeast to help them do what they do even better. So please go ahead, Sunil.
Hi, am I audible? I mean, just for everyone? Yes. Yeah, okay. I'll try and share a screen so that, at least some pictures will help in putting context. And I'll start with talking about the region and then go on to a bit of, can screen be visible now?
Yes, that's visible.
Yeah. Right. So I work in this place called Bodoland, known basically for Bodo tribe being the dominant tribe, though they make up only about 30% of the area by now. But they're supposed to be the most indigenous of the communities in the northeast part of India. So I've tried here to show, which part of India I'm talking about. The northeast, which is sometimes also seen to be the northwest part of Southeast Asia, because the communities, the area, the geography, the temperature and the temperate climate, as well as the rainy forest, all have been similar to the Southeast Asian terrain. And there's been a lot of migration in various times. the Bodos, are on the northern part of what we now call Assam. You must have known Assam for its tea, and you must have heard about Assam for its tea, and maybe for the one-horned rhinoceros, I think mainly. And so on the northern bank, these are what we call the Bodo tribe. But at one time, when they came down from the Tibetan plateau, this whole region actually has seen migrations over centuries. The Bodos are supposed to have been the first tribe which came down. And now when we call them Bodo, the D in it, originally they were actually a tribe which probably was all around, and it's called Boro, the Boro. And some of the languages in other parts are very, very similar. The culture is also very similar, but I'll try and restrict to our work here in this area, in these parts. And our headquarter is in what I can be seen here as Chirang. So I'm just giving a brief tea, oil. I mean, that's the only big industry in this area. But I mean, as both these got exploited during colonization time, the tea industry usually is headquartered in Calcutta or Kolkata these days. And because of that, I mean, the taxes go there. Oil, again, because of a colonial hangover, anything below the surface of the earth is considered to be the center's property. So, so the economy in these areas is very unmonetized. Still, there are areas where barter takes place, and people, though sometimes they have enough resources, but they're not monetized, which is really required for a market-based economy these days. It's home to about 186 languages, the whole Northeast I'm talking about. And these are not dialects, these are languages. And knowing that many of these languages have a culture or a subculture along with it, many of them, where they are substantial in places, and I would dare say that because of democracy being the reason, being the kind of political system that we have, everybody tries to carve out a majority in a particular place and tries to ask for a homeland which has their majority. And it's seen over a period of time since the last 40, 50 years, we've seen a lot of insurgent militancy here in this area. And my area, Bodoland, also till about 2 years ago, had been seeing militancy since 1989, lots of bombs and bomb blasts, killings, all that. Those scheduled tribes are considered indigenous, and the Indian Constitution does protect them a lot. What's important to note is that more than 50% of the population has either come from central India to work in the tea industry, or to exploit the. At one time, after the Bengal famine in 1943, the British had invited people from the plains of Bengal to this place, and many of those areas have a lot of Bengali Muslim population, which makes up for about another 30% of Assam's population, about 20-25% of the entire Northeast. So there's been violent insurgency in Assam since 1979, though it's come down a lot. And in the Bodoland region where I am, these 4 or 5 districts where about 3.2 million population is there, we have till 2021, we had very severe insurgency. So when we entered, my wife and myself, we were co-founders of this organization called The Ant, and I'll probably explain later why we called ourselves so. We were in the throes of insurgency, and for various reasons, we wanted to work in actuality. I just wanted to mention that, there is a dynamic of a tribal versus non-tribal, and though Adivasis, which I showed you, are tea tribes, who are tribal by definition of the Constitution and other parts of India, here they're not, they're only considered a backward community. And so there is a tension between them. Hill tribes usually, by and large, in all the states, wherever the hill tribes are, they've converted to Christianity, and the constitutional provisions allowed them to hold land, which is a very precious resource, and often even the forest department does not have control over these. So these tribes at least have a lot of resource. But the plains tribes unfortunately lost that and have been impoverished over a period of time. But yet, because of, at least in my area, the Bodo tribe has is the dominant one and dominates everyone else politically. There is a whole debate about indigenous and non-indigenous, and it becomes very difficult to, date to divide the indigenous versus non-indigenous. And so variously, 1971, when Bangladesh was formed, has become the indicator whether it's an indigenous or a non-indigenous population. I would also dare say that, after having worked here, I realized that the violence that we have seen in this area seems to be, the 187th language which people learned to speak to the center, which still has followed the colonial legacy. I'll just talk. So having very, very consciously known that we were outside, and because we wanted to just prove to ourselves that ahimsa or non-violence of, the kind that we talk about as active, proactive non-violence. So we came as outsiders and moved in. And till about 2007, we were only on bicycles. It also helped us because we were seen to be humble and having no money. So the militants couldn't ask us for any, whether we call it bribes or inducements, whatever. They never threw a challenge to us. We tried to learn the culture and language and stayed. And, so luckily, because if we weren't probably on mechanized vehicles, we wouldn't have stopped over and had meals with people and whatnot. So it helped us that we learned the culture quite early. And there was clear need of livelihoods. When we came in for the first time, I remember that there were only 3 auxiliary nurse midwives in the entire about 400,000 population. Whereas I think by the law, we're supposed to have a nurse midwife for every 3,000 population. So things were quite bad. And worst was that since 89, when the insurgency came, the militants had burnt up all the health centers and destroyed the roads, the bridges, all that, so that the army couldn't come in. We picked weaving as an entry point, knowing that, every woman in the Northeast, at least in the rural areas, knows how to weave and is expected to weave her trousseau. And that, and by using the traditional motifs and whatnot, we try to embed ourselves in the society and win over. We were lucky again that what we did was quite good quality and whatnot. And I had learned, I think, in Rajasthan, when I had worked earlier, that wherever income generation program are launched, even though we were treating TB patients, but in cases where livelihoods came in, the newer cases reduced. We use traditional motifs, and so learning the culture, respecting the culture was very important for us, and we couldn't have made a wrong move any time. We built a brand, and I think I won't go too much into it, but we tended to change the negative bias against Bodos who were seen to be always bomb blasters and killers, somebody who had a very rich culture behind them. And these are the kinds of motives that they've had. And while we just marvel at the various ways in which they weave this, but behind this, actually, there's a language to it. And these are all inspired by nature. If you can see, some of these are called the wink of a peacock or the chest of a tortoise or a turtle, actually. Fingers. I mean, so while we see them as beautiful designs, they're so inspirational there, where the connect with the nature was so good. And we I think, drew a lot of inspiration from that. And when we talk about climate change, we are constantly conscious of the fact that tribals have been so close to nature and not tried to exploit it all these years. But while they're being called backwards and they're trying to move forward, they're doing the same mistakes that all of us have imposed on the whole world. And their quality was so good that they actually started hitting the fashion weeks in the area, in far off Bombay and Delhi also. I'll go to a bit more in healthcare. And as I said earlier, there were very few nurses in the area, and malaria was dominant. I think every single hospital bed from March to about November was only having malaria patients. And we used to lose, just in this 400,000 population, or 450,000, we were losing about 500 people every year. And because there was no expectation of any new doctor or anybody coming in, and even today, I don't have a full-time doctor apart from myself in the area, we didn't know what to do. But so what we did was train barefoot doctors and women mainly, and we taught them And there wasn't even, I mean, in other places, you have a traditional or a traditional birth attendant. We don't even have a system of traditional birth attendant. We trained them onto this. You can see some of these pictures there. And we also trained then some local boys into, in marketplaces who would probably we would see the malarial parasite. And we did, I think, a reasonably good job of it. And people credit us by 2007-8, there was hardly any malaria left in the area. And people thought that we've done it, but actually, and that's where I want to really bring in that to me very clearly, climate was changing so fast. And right from 2007-8, we could see that, from say May to July or August, we used to have this pitter patter rain throughout. You would hardly have about half an hour or 1 hour when it wouldn't be raining earlier. And gradually, as we are moving to 2023, every monsoons now, I mean, you have very heavy rains and then followed by dry spells, which become very, very hot and pull the clouds in. So thunder and lightning keeps going on throughout the year, which to me probably washes away all the larvae of all the mosquitoes. And consequently, there's far less malaria in the entire Northeast. And I would dare say most parts of India now do not have. Well, the government always prides itself at having done a bit. And yes, I must say that the National Rural Health Mission, which came only after 2007, has done a good job. But a lot of the change in malarial statistics has happened because of the, this very heavy rainfalls for short periods of time, which wash away all the larval beds, and then builds up heat, which again brings in a huge spate of heavy rain. And these, I mean, as I keep also pointing out, though people might have been illiterate, and I feel that many people in the tribal areas are wise when taught in the right idiom or in the right phraseology, they learn malaria very fast. And if you can see the graph there, the National Institute of Malaria Research and all, they flew down because when I was sending the slides there for cross verification, 96% of these the species identification was correct. And all these people, we had just trained them for 1 month onto these good microscopes on which they could see. Of course, gradually, your slide tests have gone, and now antigen tests have taken over everywhere. But by 2005, the National Health Mission came in, and by 2007, when it started rolling in and malaria having gone away, we found ourselves wondering what we should be doing. And we didn't want to duplicate a system, but we realized that mental illness was something where the government would not be able to do much. And gradually, we have moved to only looking at mental illnesses where our medical interventions are concerned. Something which started in 2007, and even I didn't know how to treat patients. But we dialogued with the traditional healers in the areas, and these are called Ojhas, Devdinis, there are men and women, and people would always go to them. And to be fair, I would say that initially I didn't even know that, when despite having around more than 50 barefoot doctors and about 10 or 12 of these lab technicians who were there, I didn't know that there was so much of a burden of mental illness. It's only when we decided to work on mental illness that we realized that there are so many patients in the area. And then when we started engaging with them, and I think, setting out our limits, what we can do and what they can do, they have often become people who refer their patients to us. I really feel that, a good dialogue helped us a lot. And, when we showed videos of different types of epilepsies, different kinds of illnesses, and we explained, so they could also understand their own limits. And, so they're not keen, because what I would also like to say that they don't have a really a commercial interest in it. They really feel that somewhere, God has probably gifted them something and they're making. And I would also admit that some of our patients who don't get well with us in the first 3-4 months, they often land up back with them, and they often do a good job, better than us sometimes. And we also recognize their contribution. I think Ingrid and I go back a long time where we talked about shamanism and all. And I think they brought this human civilization till about 500 years ago. And doing them or disparaging them is not a good thing to do. They have held on, and in the climate change, they often told us about how so difficult for them now to hunt out those untested, but as far as the local population was concerned, very credible medicines, from various herbal plants, which are going further and further away, and often they have to cross the international boundary into Bhutan to try and access some of these medicines. Today, just wanted to conclude that our mental health program now is a very financially sustainable program. We actually make a profit with just £4 worth of medicines, and all we pay for the doctors, we pay for the medicines, the entire month's medicine for only about £4 a month that we charge. And we, everything is, the database is absolutely on the cloud. We have an app on this that also has been paid for by the surpluses from the program. About 45% major psychiatric disorders with us, about 25% seizures. And now this is spread to various districts where we partner with other smaller NGOs who are working with traditional communities, and where they can get psychiatrists at least once a month to finally do the new cultural medical kind of treatment that we understand. And at this moment, I think our monthly load is around 4,000 patients who get treated by this model, about £4 a month, where patients are responsible for running the thing. Of course, the first time when we start a camp, it's about, what should I say, about £1,500, the amount of investment that it takes. And after that, it becomes financially self-sustaining in about 6 months' time.
Thank you, Sunil. We're encroaching at the end, a lot of time.
Sorry. So, yeah, okay. I'll just say that one of the things that we have tried to say is that I've always felt that whatever kills more people should be a public health problem. And the disease is hate and this whole otherizing thing. And so we've tried, because there have been major ethnic conflicts in my area as well as in the Northeast, we've tried to get people together. So these are some of the games that we play where we ensure that all communities win together instead of against each other. So we've chosen Ultimate Frisbee, where there's not only an equal amount of gender to play, but because there are no referees there, each one has to self-refer themselves. And we feel that's the way to the future. And for us in our tournaments, I mean, there have to be 3 languages, mother tongues, and 3 religions at least, so that people are working together. We try and mix cultures, get people to work with each other, show off their best parts to each other. So I'm just running through, because these are just pictures. There are about 18 linguistic communities only in my area. So it's not very easy working, because any awareness material, everything has to be translated to so many languages. But we also feel that culture is a dynamic thing, and we do work with all traditional communities to try and balance gender. And we feel that violence gets embedded in children's psychology also very early. And they learn bullying and whatnot. So we try and nip it in the bud by working very closely with community people who actually stop all this violence. We've had some very good results from these areas. Again, some of these are also, we help them change their culture also, where they are traversing to modernity. Last but not the least, the Bodo Students Union, I would say, in the Northeast, there's this thing called Students Unions, which are like the extension of the tribal dormitories you must have heard all over the world, where they negotiate with each other, anything, and they can be linked to militant organizations also. But in our area, they came to us for help and how they could move towards non-violence. And it's been a great journey with them. And today, they have formed a political party and are ruling the place. And looking after, because they are only 30%, and so they've learned that they can't possibly be ruling the area and do the same thing as what others were doing unto them. And in that sense, we feel very good that we were part of this journey where they have called all the militants to surrender, and now trying to look after even the minority communities there. Thanks. I think I'll stop at that. Yeah. Sorry for extending it.
Yeah. That was a wonderful presentation. You can answer some questions at the end, hopefully, after we've had all 3 speakers. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Ingrid Lewis, who is a public health professional and the founder and co-director of Project Wanga, which supports mobile clinics run by hunter-gatherers who provide access to healthcare to hunter-gatherers and other remote living forest dwellers. And this is in the Northern Republic of Congo. Ingrid lived with the Congolese Bayaka hunter-gatherers between 1993 and 1997 and has been visiting them ever since. Her work includes conducting vaccination campaigns and treatment campaigns against yaws and leprosy. She has provided treatments for the most prevalent diseases and research within existing public health and education infrastructures. She has also coordinated and assisted a team of Congolese doctors and nurses to provide primary health care to remote forest communities in the 1990s. Her research highlights the fact that discrimination against hunter-gatherers has an important impact on their access to healthcare and on their health-seeking behaviours. Together with the Mbendajele healers, Ingrid set up the first mobile clinic in 1996, combining traditional remedies with generic medicines, training healers using Bayaka traditional teaching and learning methods. So Ingrid has, in combining scientific research and indigenous knowledge, has helped the Bayaka design and run their own healthcare. Thank you, Ingrid. The floor is open to you.
Thank you, Amali, and also thank you, Sunil, for such an inspiring talk. I will share my screen. Can you see this?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. So I'm taking you now to a country that's 9.5 times smaller than India, to Congo. Congo-Brazzaville. It has a population of 5.7 million people, where 70% of the people live in urban centers. It is one of the least densely populated countries in Africa, with an average of 15 people per square kilometer, and even less dense, 1.8 people per square kilometer in the northern region. Initially, I volunteered for the National Health Service, carrying out vaccination campaigns as well as campaigns against leprosy and yaws in these very densely forested areas. Before I could speak the Bayaka language properly, I obviously had to rely on translators from among their farming groups and also on accounts from district medical professionals to explain to me the very high prevalence of leprosy and yaws among the Bayaka. 85% of all yaws cases and 81.6% of all leprosy cases in the north were found amongst the Bayaka. Local medical professionals said that the Bayaka are hard to reach as they live a nomadic life, so you never know where to find them. Or they said they don't really care about Western medicines, or they said they don't really understand the importance of the long-term treatment for such a disease. And similarly, common beliefs about what is termed non-compliance. I observed that it is very common practice to leave leprosy medication in the hands of the sedentary and literate neighbors. Now, this has two rationales. One is that the local health authorities believe that the farmers are far more responsible and can supervise the Bayaka in taking medicines regularly, therefore reassuring compliance. Secondly, it's easier for them to organize contact with the Bayaka through farmer intermediaries. I apologize for this maybe explicit picture, but I think it's important to know. Once I had mastered the language, a more complex picture emerged. The Bayaka are very well aware of the debilitating effects of leprosy that it has on members of their group. In contrast to their farmer neighbors, the disease is not stigmatized. The Bayaka leprosy sufferers, they are part of that community with equal rights and equal duties as any other member of this very highly egalitarian society. In interviews with leprosy sufferers about why they do not follow a course of treatment, they generally said to me, either they had never been diagnosed in spite of severe physical disfigurements, or they explained that the farmer with whom their medicines had been entrusted would not give them the medicines unless they had worked for them. So a sufferer seeking treatment would often become an unpaid servant, enduring several months of servitude. Over time, I discovered that farmers encouraged doctors to think of the Bayaka as childish, irresponsible, and even stupid in order to assure control over the medicines by claiming they would assure compliance. This situation, unknowingly reinforced by local health professionals, is understandably intolerable for Bayaka leprosy sufferers. Labeling them non-compliant is an oversimplification of a very complex problem whose resolution requires more than a standard medical approach. Now, standard approaches to providing healthcare assume that people are normally sedentary. However, a proportion of the world's population is nomadic, and increasing numbers of people are forced to migrate to escape climate-related disasters and economic issues. So, depending on the definition employed, around 100 million people today are nomadic. And it is predicted that up to 1 billion people will migrate due to climate disasters by 2050. An estimated 500,000 of today's nomadic peoples are African hunter-gatherers, such as the Bayaka here. Access to healthcare and education are often given as the reasons to forcibly sedentarize nomadic populations. Medical data specifically on this among African forest hunter-gatherers are scarce, but it's estimated that up to 50% of a population may die in the first years of a forced transition in lifestyle. History has shown us the damaging effects of assimilation and sedentarization on nomadic people since colonial times. Surprisingly, current attitudes in government, conservation, industry still impose livelihood solutions for development and progress based on sedentarization. It's truly astonishing how little has been learned from history. The negative consequences of assimilation programs on health and well-being of indigenous peoples can threaten their cultural and physical survival to the point of cultural genocide. Survival by hunting and gathering alone has become extremely difficult, sometimes impossible, and increasingly illegal. And yet it is against international law for people to be discriminated against because of their culture and lifestyle. Deep-seated discrimination takes generations to dissolve. Every generation afresh has to be educated about discrimination, marginalization, domination, and exploitation, destroying people's lives. Forcing hunter-gatherers to abandon their mode of life irreparably damages humanity's overall resilience, as our collective store of cultural diversity is reduced. Monolithic ideas of progress and development produce some of the most serious problems facing humanity today. In relation to climate change and forest conservation, hunter-gatherers are keystone actors, contributing to the uniqueness and the abundance of these forest ecosystems they are co-constitutive of. The intimate knowledge of people who have cared for, enhanced, and managed these forests for millennia provides a useful and I think perhaps a better model for conserving such ecosystems than do current conservation attitudes and activities based on protected areas. Hunter-gatherer economy, furthermore, is based on sharing forest resources with everyone present. This approach can offer solutions to sustainable resource management, ignored by our capitalist extractive models. Hunter-gatherers have unique knowledge of the balance of ecosystems they live in. Forests showing signs of overhunting, for instance, they are called kwana. Kwana means being tired, and they are sealed from human activity so that they can recover. Leaf signs, as you see here, are placed around such forest areas so that anyone passing by knows not to hunt until this forest has recovered. If we are to address climate change, it becomes increasingly important to support such innovative solutions. The intimate knowledge of people who have lived for thousands of years in such ecosystems could be valuable in conservation projects working in the Congo Basin. When people are forced to abandon their mode of living and be sedentarized, they not only lose their previous mode of life and the unique accumulated knowledge and skills that came with it, but the ecosystem itself loses one of its primary carers and shapers, and humanity is that much poorer. In the light of global plans to eradicate infectious diseases such as leprosy, measles, polio, TB, and to address the rise of zoonotic diseases, it's increasingly important to find appropriate ways to incorporate inaccessible groups such as the Bayaka into programs without destroying their cultural identity. Hunting and gathering societies, pastoralists, and climate refugees alike can move camp many times a year. And in the course of these movements, they may visit other population centers and countries where infectious diseases presumed eradicated, as well as emerging zoonotic diseases, could be transmitted. Unless health professionals become aware of these issues, they may unknowingly contribute to discrimination, sometimes by well-intentioned interventions, trying to incorporate marginalized groups into healthcare, and especially if a healthcare program aims to achieve One Health. Building hospitals or fixed health posts closer to such populations does not assure they can benefit because of the discrimination they face. Let me briefly explain this with M's case. M, a young Bayaka woman, was in obstructed labor with her first baby. I managed to evacuate her to a nearby health center and experienced firsthand the life-threatening consequences of discrimination. After attending her cesarean, I left to have some food. And when I returned, I was horrified to find that the infusions and all her medication had been taken away from her and given to a farmer woman. I overheard the nurses calling the young woman Nyama, which means animal, and they muttered their disapproval of wasting expensive medicines on a pygmy. Only on the intervention by the doctor did they reluctantly replace her medication. So deep-seated prejudices may be very hard to dissolve despite the sincere efforts of many. Issues such as discrimination simply have to be taken into account in planning services for marginalized groups. So to address this issue, I set up the first mobile clinic together with respected hunter-gatherer healers in 1996. We called it Bwanga, which means medicine in Bayaka language. Thanks to the Bayaka involved and with the support of my dear Dutch colleagues and friends, since 2014, the project now runs 11 mobile clinics saving lives in remote forest areas. Project Bwanga provides the Bayaka access to primary health care without damaging their culture and right to a distinctive mobile way of life. And we do this by involving traditional healers. They are the first to be consulted for help as they are trusted and respected by their communities, and good healers can identify and treat many diseases, and they know how to care for the sick. They provide meaningful services because they also have the cultural sensitivity and language skills necessary. We therefore train community-selected healers in the delivery of primary health care through portable mobile clinics, as you can see here in those bidongs, in remote forest areas. Our project augments their traditional system of healing with safe generic medicines. It enables the Bayaka to continue living the way they want to, helping to ensure their rich culture and forest-oriented way of life continues. Now, the training of non-literate people in the safe use of generic medicines requires an adapted approach. The project has developed a system of labeling medicines and explained dosages with pictograms rather than in writing, a financial accounting and stock management system for the enumerate, and a training strategy adapted to non-literate people. So in order to be effective, training has to be culturally appropriate. In Bayaka life, it makes little sense to give the typical theoretical instructions a Westerner may be used to. So for instance, if you meet a gorilla in the forest, the theoretical instruction is issued by Western experts is avoid eye contact and take a submissive pose. Well, that doesn't prepare you to what a warning or charging gorilla actually sounds and feels like. The Bayaka, in contrast, they teach sounds and behaviors through very precise reenactments of actual encounters with gorillas to educate listeners. And their regular sharing of such careful observations are key to survival in the forest. So in our training, we use Bayaka teaching and learning methods. And these include Mosambo, which is a public speaking where individuals address the entire camp. And you see Malon, one of our healers here, giving a Mosambo on the right. He shouts out, Oka, Oka, listen to me. Then Moajo, which is hilariously precise reenactments of events that educate all on acceptable and unacceptable behavior. And here you see one of our healers, Andy Pondon, pretending that he has a lot of boils and infections and wants to get treated. Then Masana, so we do a lot of games, and they range from children's games to role play to adult ritual. And then we use Gano, which are song stories involving the participation of all for knowledge transmission. And of course, learning by doing, simply being there and observing, taking part. So our training is based on these methods. So a person with a severe headache or toothache has a certain headache or toothache face. We use key observations, sounds, postures, expressions, and movements that can be commonly observed in people suffering from the illnesses we aim to address. We also use teaching aids such as fake poo and fake blood to make lessons realistic, memorable, and fun. I'll now just show you a 4-minute film of a typical training.
La nuit, c'est chaud.
Midi, à l'enfant, tu bouillis l'eau. Après, on toque bien, on va bouillir bien. Quand tu fais des sons, bien, l'eau ça.
Kalango.
Mamboka basoni, Ose Bwanga, Asonye Bato, Mamboka, Ose Bwanga, Asonye Bato, Asonye Musoka, Asonye Namiso, Asonye Namakeko, Asonye Namoye, Asonye Namoye, Asonye Namoye, bela na mwe, beke banga na nye, musuko bela na mwe, beke banga na nye, dokotole singa na nye, beke banga na nye, musuko beke banga.
Ingrid,
Yes.
I must interject, so sorry, because it's such an insightful presentation. Your annotated time is coming to a close. Could you wrap up, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm wrapping up. It's one more slide. So we have now 11 active mobile clinics run by female and male healers. We balance community perceived needs with national health priorities. They treat 15 diseases for a nominal fee of 500 CFA, which is what everybody can afford. In the communities where the project is active, mortality and morbidity due to the illnesses that can be treated are reduced. There is a noticeable improvement of the social status of the Bayaka, since they are acknowledged as good healers and sought by both farmers and Bayaka. Neighboring farming populations have asked us to train Bayaka near them so that they can have a mobile clinic as well. And the privately run hospital in Pokola now employs 2 Bayaka women who welcome Bayaka patients into hospital and help them during their stay. So if you'd like to have more information, you can visit our website, and it has been hacked, so it's offline. So we hope to have it back online in the next couple of days, but there's more information there if you want it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ingrid. Such a wonderful example of centering Indigenous knowledge. I'd like to move on to the third and final speaker, Runa Khan. I'm going to give you her bio now, and I hope she's around. Can I just
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, fantastic. I'll introduce you, and then you go ahead. Okay.
Thank you.
Runa Khan is the founder of Friendship, an international social purpose organization established in 2002, and the Friendship International operates through 5 European countries as well. Friendship works for the most vulnerable and remote communities in Bangladesh, saving lives, poverty alleviation, climate adaptation, and empowerment, bringing direct services to 7.5 million lives a year. She is an advocate of climate change, human rights, women's empowerment, leadership, and nurturing human values. Her awards include Green Awards by Positive Planet Foundation, Social Entrepreneur Award by the ISDB, the Rolex Award for Enterprise in 2006, the Ashoka Fellowship, and Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneur Award. Runa is also a board member of the Global Dignity Advisory Council and a member of the British Asian Trust Bangladesh, and an honorary president of the One Sustainable Health Forum approach, and an honorary trustee of the Duke of Edinburgh Award, Bangladesh. I put the floor open to Runa now. Thank you, Runa. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Amali, and I'm very pleased to be here. Just with all of you, and especially Sunil and Luis, Dr. Luis, who I heard. It was amazing, and it's just one thinks back as to when you cut someone, you bleed red, and I think with healthcare, however wherever we are, whatever lives we are touching, this condition of the unity that every human life has the same kind of issues, more or less. Every human being has the same kinds of needs, and it's only at a very a different level are the needs different. So I think all of us are working in the same kind of a scenario with internally displaced people, with those who are migrating, with the ultra poor, with ostracized communities. And this is, it's wonderful to hear, peers who are also in this arena of work. Thank you so much for bringing us together. So I start a story. The story, started 20 years ago. And and it was not even trying to work with climate, or not even trying to work with trying to do anything big, or working with to become a big organization. It was basically, I used to go sailing with my ex-husband on the rivers of Bangladesh, and suddenly I realized, how far we were in the cities and in our worlds from these millions and millions of people, who are somehow let at the vagrancies of I think that's the right word, of climate impact. It was not even, I didn't even understand them as climate impact. I just felt that they were communities which were left totally unaddressed, untouched by either international organizations or even, I would say, the government, perhaps not through lack of will, but rather through lack of resources and management skills. And also, there is always this difference of large organizations and small organizations with systems which actually in the field bring impact. So I don't use the word innovation, because innovation is such a cliche term nowadays. And innovation is like, okay, so you are doing something really special. It's not that. All I think we are trying to do is to bring health. And that is how I started the pioneer, the first mobile ship hospitals, NGO ship hospitals in the world. And this was because Bangladesh is a country of 170 million people. It's a country which is 1/4 the size of a country like France, half a state of India, and 52% is under the water all the time. I mean, that's not even in big floods. In big floods, it can be 80%. And you have, it's a delta with 3 of the largest rivers in the world flowing through it. And these rivers can flow at 10 to 15 knots, when the floods come in. So you can understand and it's all silt. So you can understand the impact of climate, the changing climate, and also the impact of what happens in migration. Because Bangladesh is not a very rich country. For example, our healthcare is 0.67 cents approximately, compared to something like Holland, which is $33,600, per year for a person. So it's quite natural that even if there is will, and of course, sometimes there is lack of it, and even if there is will, it's very difficult to reach these communities. So these are communities where, suppose, these are islands of the Brahmaputra, islands of the Ganges, islands in the coastal belts. And today we are also reaching the Sylhet areas, which are the Howard lands, which are like the sea in summer, and totally rice fields and, of fields in winter. So these areas are the areas where climate is impacting Bangladesh most. And if you take the map of Bangladesh like that and the climate impacted area, and you put in the friendship map, it's just, it goes like that. And that is because we started working with communities which were left unaddressed. It was very simple. And for the ultra poor, as Sunil very correctly said, that, as he's also doing the work which is beyond health, you need to do beyond health. This One Health modality and concept, I had no idea of all this, but I had to start all this because somehow the lives you were touching in health could not be left unaddressed when the disaster came. It could not be left unaddressed when disaster went away and then impacted by having no food to eat. You had to address that. And then you suddenly find that they need hope in their life to continue their life. Then you had to bring in empowerment. And then you went on to bring hope and empowerment, education, and linking them up to the mainstream of economy in the sense of legal rights. And every time they would migrate, they would go to different places, and their whole islands would break off, and they would have to shift not only with they would shift sometimes not even with the goods they have. They had to leave everything behind because everything was broken. And the fact that they could save their lives, that was what was most important, because it happened quite often that they could not go. They did not even have a boat to take them, and then we had to ensure that lives could be saved. So friendship today works with 4 promises of saving lives, which means health. It means, of course, being there when cyclones strike, preparing people for disaster, being with them for water, sanitation, housing. We've done a whole process of that. And then also transitional funding so that they can be prepared for moving from being a climate migrant to be able to access the mainstream economy. So we do a transitional funding for 2 years. Then, of course, schooling, education is so important. Both adult functional literacy and schooling. And then, of course, poverty. So we work with agriculture. We work with many of the universities in Bangladesh and also internationally in climate for agriculture and for fishing and alternative livelihoods. Artificial insemination of sheep because of the protein deficiency in the country. Trying to grow crops in lands which are left infertile during the winter months. So we are doing that for. And also, of course, we have friendship. We also have, I started friendship functional literacy. Then the people said, okay, now what do we do? How do we earn our income? And then we launched an enterprise so that we could sell the goods that they were making. So we started the first craft industry in this area. And we have something which is called Colors from the Chores. Colors of the Chores, Nodi, Colors of the Chores. You can have a look at it. It's our fashion brand. We are the first slow fashion organization from Bangladesh. And it's interesting because, none of it is what we aim to do. It is what the needs asked us to do. So healthcare is our biggest. 60% of friendship work is healthcare. It's in all the remote areas, unaddressed areas of the country. And we needed to build health on mobility because, we needed to go where people couldn't come to us. There were islands where children had not even gone to the mainland ever in their life, and they were like 12 years old. So we needed to carry healthcare to them. So we started off with what I would call the friendship 3-tier healthcare system. And that, of course, also came because of responsibility after responsibility after responsibility. You can't operate a patient and then leave them behind with nowhere to go. So we started a 3-tier program. The first tier are the mobile hospital ships and now land hospitals in area where mobile ships cannot go, but people can have, they have linkages with land. And then they would move on to going to, I'm sorry, I thought I had about 15, 20 minutes. Now I see 5 minutes because I've just come on like 5 minutes ago. Is it okay if I take another 10 minutes? That means 5 minutes for a video and another 5 minutes to round up the talk. Thank you. And then we went on to, moving into land hospitals. Okay, so we do from reconstructive surgeries and orthopedic surgeries, eye camps, cervical cancer. We are the only organization in the field who is allowed by the government to do cervical cancer. Because treatment is a very invasive kind of a diagnosis. And also we go up to the first level of cryo and all that with that. And then also for EPI for children, family planning, all this. So primary, secondary, up to the lower level of tertiary care. And then the ship moves or the people migrate. So what happens? Around each of these ships, we have about 200 clinics, mobile clinics, and these mobile clinics are then taking over. The mobile clinics are manned by paramedics who are 4 years medical training. So so they are allowed to do injectables and they refer patients to the secondary health hospitals. Then what they can't do, we have community Medicaids. And these community Medicaids, we can now give accreditations and we can give them they can be accredited in this. So we can, the government and us, it's all accredited by the government, so we can give common certification courses for them. So we have about 700 800 community Medicaids, and we have about 680 clinics, mobile clinics. We are having 5 new hospital ships coming in this year, 2 land hospitals, 2 hospital ships, and about 5 or 6 static clinics, which is land clinics. So the service, it did not start again, to reiterate, it did not start as a One Health solution. But Friendship is a One Health solution. It's like an academic lab for all the things that we are doing, because one cannot leave the people behind in need. And I'll show you a little 4-minute video and then come back for a minute or 2 and then, so please start the video. Just to show, it's Friendship Health. It's only on Friendship Health, none of the other work of Friendship. So, thank you very much.
আমার মেয়ের বয়স আর জাহাজের আমার চাকরির বয়স সেম, তো আমি ফিল করি এটাকে সেই রকমই, এটা আমার মেয়ের মতো এরকমই আমি ফিল করি।
Friendship has been providing healthcare services in the hard-to-reach and remote areas over the last 20 years, which was actually a need-based healthcare services for the communities. Friendship developed a 3-tier healthcare system. Tier 1, which is the ships which act as a referral hospital.
আমরা যখন স্টার্ট করলাম কিছু কিছু অসুখ বিসুখ যেটা চিন্তাই করা যায় না যে এত ছিল, খুব বেশি হাইজিন মেনটেন করতো না, যার জন্য স্কিন ডিজিজ ছিল অনেক, স্ক্যাবিস, প্রচুর স্ক্যাবিস ছিল, একজনের হয়তো ফুল ফ্যামিলিতে হয়ে যায়। এর পাশাপাশি চোখের প্রচুর পেশেন্ট পেলাম আমরা, কিন্তু আমাদের চোখের ইউনিট ছিল না, আমাদের দাঁতের কোনো ইউনিট ছিল না। তো এগুলো সব কিন্তু নিড বেসড গড়ে উঠছে। আমাদের শিপটার মুভমেন্ট হয়, আমরা এক জায়গায় 2-2.5 মাস থাকি, দেন আরেকটা জায়গায় যাই। অনেক মানুষ কিন্তু অপেক্ষা করে কবে জাহাজটা আসবে, আমরা ওইখানেই অপারেশনটা করব। এই যে মানুষের যে আমাদের প্রতি ফেইথটা কিন্তু তাদের অনেক বেশি আমাদের, এবং তারা এমনভাবে মোটিভেটেড এবং কাউন্সিল নিজেদের দ্বারাই হয়ে গেছে যে না, আমাদের এই জাহাজটা হলো আমাদের জন্য এক ধরনের আশীর্বাদ।
Friendship started 20 years ago in the riverine areas of north of Bangladesh, because that was the need there. We needed a floating infrastructure, which was a hospital, and as the land used to break continuously, we needed to take the hospital to the people, because so often the people could not come to any land-based units.
Over 3 million services to maximize the capacity of our community health workers. We built a mobile app for mHealth that does household and individual registration, diagnosis, selects medicines to give, connects to our doctor center, and gives referral. It also includes a GPS tracking system for migratory families and patients.
আমাদের এলাকায় আগে বাচ্চাদের টিকা দিত না, এখন আমরা কাজ করার থেকে এখন বাচ্চার মায়েরাও আমাদের কাছে আসে, কোন দিন বাচ্চাকে টিকা দিব, কোন দিন ডাক্তার আসবে আমাকে একটু খবর দিয়ে। এখন স্যাটেলাইটে আসে 5 টাকার বিনিময়ে ওষুধ পায়, আমাদের কাছে আসে, আমাদের কাছে অল্প টাকা হলে ওষুধ পায়।
During the time of Sidr in 2007, the coastal belt area was as deprived of help as in the northern region. So we thought here along the coastal belt, we could build a hospital, And I really wanted it to be a hospital which was for the people of this area. I really hope that in the coming 20 years, we see a responsible, quality, dependable healthcare system reaching people who cannot reach the system.
So what makes this possible? You know, it is the deep respect and trust which we have built in the community. These are communities which don't even open their veils in front of people. And today, we don't only have, for a gynae camp, for example, we don't have female doctors only, we have male doctors. And the husbands allow the women to come and get themselves checked with male doctors. So, and they don't even look back twice. This, for me, is like the building a platform and not quicksand for people to stand off and take off, and us to be able to give them what they exactly need at the right time, in the right way, in the right amount, and not overdo it. Because we must never provoke wrong actions, be it in the community, be it with the stakeholders like the government. And this sense of interresponsibility, interdependency is, I think, what I hope would be the spark and the work that Friendship would continue for in the future. And our mHealth, our health system, today the government has agreed to using this in the hard to reach area. So the 5 new hospital ships with about 200 clinics will be taken over by the government in 5 years' time. These are the new ships that are coming in with a bilateral agreement with the government. So it is building trust, it is building mutual respect, and based on that trust, I feel that we can reach through a kind of a friendship academy, which we are now trying to launch. And I hope that we will hear from it soon. And I would really be so happy to have people like Sunil and Dr. Louise, all of you, be part of this and the wonderful team that we have here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rina. It's utterly inspiring. So wonderful to hear the work that you're doing. We are going to take a short comfort break now, but I would urge the audience to now put your questions to the amazing speakers into the chat, and we shall see them then and hear their responses. So I have a question, but we haven't started yet. As soon as the screen changes,
okay.
It's a minute to go to the end of the comfort break.
No problem. 1 more minute. It becomes so difficult when you're traveling. I'm speaking from planes, airports, you know. It's
You're
so
clearly a very
all right. No, it's I think you have to do the same if you're traveling. So, you know.
Well, before the others come, just to say, I mean, it is absolutely wonderful. What a dream come true. What a wonderful thing that you have built for the communities there.
Thank you. And, you know, I'm so amazed with your work also and the work of Sunil. It's really, and do you know that I felt very close to Dr. Louise because, you know, Mother Teresa, who started with leprosy, she had come to do the opening of our hospital in 95. At that time, we had not even converted it into a ship hospital. It was just a river barge. And we had just put up, you know, things on the river barge as a medical unit just to show that it's possible. And Mother Teresa had come for the opening. So, you know, I have a very, you know, deep, I feel oneness, you know, when we see people working with leprosy.
Okay, Bruna, I have a question for you. I think we're about to
Yes.
start. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Yes.
I'm sure you've been as inspired as I have with 3 magnificent presentations. Bruna's on a short battery somewhere on her travel. So she's asked to take the first question. And indeed, we do have a question for Bruna's work. Bruna, from the chat, what adaptations do you think friendship will need to make when floods, if floods become worse? Do you think you have managed to tackle this already? Very inspiring talk.
Thank you very much. You know, I cannot say that we have tackled it fully. I don't think that's in the capacity. You have to be really vain to say that you've managed it fully, because you don't know what climate is going to bring. You know, climate change is so unpredictable. At the pace of it, we learn every year from it. But one thing for sure, that mobile solutions are the only thing that can really have continuity. And we need to embed this very deeply in our working, in the working modality, not only of Bangladesh, but in many of the countries which are having, migrant communities. Because as people move, they need to have secondary health care. That means if they are blind, they need to see. If a child cannot walk, they need to walk, so that they are part of the mainstream community. You cannot leave them behind. They need that mobility of follow-ups, because it's a responsibility that you ensure follow-ups. Third, the community themselves have to be taught what they can do in health and what they can't do in health. That's extremely important, so that they know, and they know where to refer. So bringing them together through an M-Health system, whatever it is, it's not that ours is the only one, but ours have worked very well, but it needs to be done. And with it needs to be the responsibility which comes from empathy and compassion, and understanding that you cannot work in an ad hoc way and expect communities to have long-term impact. Sustainability comes when people internalize the work which you do. And it's extremely important that this is where ad hoc work versus long-term community work and not project work is very important. So I think mobile and community, like we create teachers from the community. We create paramedics from the community, paralegal aides from the community. So these are extremely important to ensure that community has such a stake. And even when you're not there, the community can continue. So give them a system of which we have done, we have formats for a business modality for all education for, we are building the education one, but we have it for the community medic aids, a business modality which has also been accredited by the government, so that they can be in the village and do the work of a micro-social entrepreneurs. At the base of everything are the micro-social entrepreneurs who must be responsible to their community. So we work with this vision.
Runa, may I ask a question? Maybe a bit selfish.
Yes.
As the host. When you're fully aware of this, of course, when you come in as a kind of the people with the power and the wealth, and you go in to the powerless, there is a power imbalance. And in order to be culturally safe in those communities that you're addressing, and I can tell already that is happening, because when you say things like the women will allow themselves to be examined by male doctors, that infers that they have a sense of safety in what you're providing. I was wondering, in the concept of cultural safety, there is kind of a reflexivity that about power imbalances for the people that actually deliver the healthcare. So in the trainings of your organization, is there any reflexivity about that power imbalance and reducing that power in hierarchy to empower the people you're serving?
I'm very sorry. I take it back on this.
Okay. I think there
Would you repeat this? I will be very quick. Will you repeat the question? I'm sorry about this, Amali.
Do you train the people and that deliver the healthcare on reflexivity, i.e. to reflect on power imbalances that may be between the health provider and the health recipient, so that they feel safe?
You see, this is extreme. It's a very interesting question. I'll tell you why it's so interesting. Because we take people from the community on their character, okay? People who are acceptable to the communities. There are very few health workers actually either from the government or from the community. But the quality of the community medic aids are so good, and the region is so difficult to reach, that the trust even now between a health worker, like the government uses our services, you know, for their EPI, for their family planning. Every time that there is a cyclone and food relief has to be done, our paralegal aides, our community medic aides, they are the frontline workers, even for the government. And this is where I think, I think where our strength comes. The quality of the output that we give is so strong in the community that there is a mutual trust. Can you imagine a trust on us and our system? Can you imagine a person from the community being selected? This person is trained in legal aid. And this person in an island which would take the police to come maybe 5 hours, this person has a legal booth and solving the issues of domestic violence, child marriage, fights, and it could be a woman. And no one questions her or him. And in the beginning, I was scared. We needed to ensure that qualitatively, she was just and she was fair. And she would say what she couldn't do, and take it to the head. And this is, I think, the basis of all work, and people want to be part of something which is working. I have no doubt on human goodness, be it the government, be it other NGOs, be it the community. If you are doing something with verity, people want to be part of this. And I think this is the strength Friendship has over, 7.5 million people, and whatever we put in, if we think that people are needing it and we go to them and tell them that we think you need this, they accept it wholeheartedly. We can start projects within 3 months, and make it successful by God's grace so far. And this has happened because of the community, the inbuilt trust which the community has on us. And it's so important, People would initially tell me that you have to sit with the community, eat with the community, do this with the community. Otherwise, how will you gain the trust? No, I always said, if you work with justice, fairness, integrity, deal with them as an equal, but do not take or receive anything from them except what you are meant to do. This gives, a person, even in the remotest island of Friendship, will not drink a glass of water in the house of a beneficiary. Because today it's water, tomorrow it's food. Third day, they will go to give money for crops and they will buy their crops. Corruption has a way of seeping in so deeply in environments which is filled with poverty, and governance is so needed. So we have very, very strict protocols, but I think they're very respected protocols. And I do believe in that.
Thank you.
Gentleness is a sign of strength, not of weakness.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you. I'm going to run out of battery, so please, I have to apologize and move. Thank you very much.
We have had several questions come in. Thank you, Rina, so much. Could
and I might have somebody there who can reply to some of the questions. I have somebody there, so if there is something he could answer.
Okay,
thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amali. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you. Wonderful team.
One of the first questions that came in might be applicable to you, Ingrid. I'll ask the question, and if you'd like me to return to it, I can. But this question is, are there any lessons that the mainstream Western medical system could learn from the health systems that your communities employ?
Right. Yes, certainly. I think in some respects, I would like to refer to an article you recently published that is about rhizomic thinking. We are still dealing with a medical system that is quite colonial and androgenic and white. We are still dealing with a top-down model of healthcare. So when, as you can see from Sunil's approach and Runa's approach and my approach, it is really working rhizomic, so working with the people concerned and developing solutions together. Solutions that are acceptable, culturally appropriate, and actually address community perceived needs rather than what we think are national health priorities. So what if you want to do something more large scale, if you want to scale it up into health interventions by a nation or globally, then I think it just simply has to be on the ground, and it has to be more horizontal rather than top down.
Thank you so much. We could explore that a lot longer, but I'm going to ask Sunil a question, if I may. It's an adaptation of a question that has been asked about a kind of key message that you have for organizing your sort of scaled health system response to the local communities. And this is my nuance to it. Sunil, you work in areas that have endemic conflict. So can you tailor your response to the situation in the area of the world that you're working to?
Oh, okay. One of the things which I've realized is, this, I mean, what has already been talked about, this top-down kind of thing and putting everything into a big box. It really doesn't work anywhere, especially in my area where, there are so many different communities with so many different cultures. But as I think Luna was also mentioning, a certain amount of, a discipline of the organizations and, the way you were asking this question. And, so we ensure that all our staff goes and sits on the ground immediately, so that at whatever level, if women are sitting, so that's where you will also be. So humility, talking truth, and, without blaming anybody anytime. I mean, we focus on the issue and not, it's like sin, not the sinner kind of a thing. Do not talk about who's wrong, but what is wrong. I mean, in that fashion, I think we managed to reach across without any conflict anywhere. And I mean, you can watch me. I mean, I keep wearing these clothes and not the traditional clothes. I've not learned the Bodo language, so I know the common lingua franca of Assam. And yet people have accepted. So it's not just, being with all the time, but the culture, which is common to all of us. I think just being honest, humble, and whatnot works across everywhere. And I think that, unfortunately, in the drive of, constantly saying that, these people are backward and, people who are forward wear like different types of clothes. And so that probably brings in a divide. The moment you try and focus on, what's common to all of us, and that's, this constant in all cultures, all religions. I mean, we have truth, humility, honesty, that kind of thing. If it keeps getting projected, you don't have a problem. And so while we have, what you were asking, at scale, when we are now working in about 15 districts, about 22 camps that we do, 28 camps now, with other NGOs, small NGOs who know their locality better, who probably have staff who belongs to the same community which is dominant there. And it becomes much more easy, but there has to be a win-win situation in it. And every now and then we have to tweak the formula, for a larger scale, so that each one's ideas, each one's, differences do come in. So as we have more of an app now, app-based, it becomes more kind of challenging because the app cannot be changed so easily. But yet we've seen that, especially in psychiatry, where there's a lot of cultural psychiatric element, and we built an app where much more research can happen, so that every single nuance can be captured there. But I mean, we are waiting for people to actually spend their time doing this. But the idea is that, psychiatry especially is such a nuanced thing, and it's still a very new field. It's not easy. And we are seeing that as the world is changing, I think there are more. So sometimes I often say that you must be mad not to be mad in this world now, because you want to cut off from so many things. And this another small thing I just wanted to mention was that believing that maybe box people, for example, my tribal people, Bodos, for example, they're probably the healthiest of all the other communities. Their traditional diet continues. They have certain amount of power over their resources. And because of that, their children, even without immunization, have probably the lowest infant mortality rate. So when I really listen to the government programs, please, have you done enough for the tribals? Oh, we don't need to do enough for the tribals. I mean, the tribals can look after themselves. If we would allow to see them as forward and advanced systems rather than backward systems. So that's, I don't want to go on too much if you understood the hang of what I wanted to say.
That's just very interesting, Sunil. And certainly the field of cultural psychiatry is so enormous. And there are actually lots of publications in colonial settler journals with parallels in America, various continents, that is a huge consideration for mental health. I think we're running out of time now, and we could ask so many questions, but sadly our session has ended. So I would like to give a huge thanks to our three speakers. Their talks were enlightening, and hopefully the ripples of their wisdom will run very far and affect change in a global sense. I'm going to round up now, saying that this was the third out of a series of 4 webinars, and the next webinar in this 4-part series is focused on decolonization. It will take place on May the 18th. So in order to join, sign up for the Flourishing Diversity newsletter. You'll find the link in the chat at the moment, so that you'll be the first to know when registration is live. So we really also value your feedback on this event to inform future offerings, and you'll find a link to a short feedback form in the chat. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for the organisers of the event to allow me to host this event, and it's been an absolute delight. So goodbye to everyone and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you to the organisers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.